Shalom Aleichem, everybody. It is Erev Shabbos, Parshat Vayigash, and I want to share with you a thought that comes from the Sefer Sichas Musar from Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. Rav Chaim quotes the Medrash that says when Paro was planning on his being Mishabeh, Klal Yisrael, working Klal Yisrael, he says, the Torah says, Hava nischak malo. Let us think wisely about what to do. And Chazal say there were three advisors that he had. He had an advisor, Bilam, and Bilam gave him advice. Bilam Yo'atz, Eov. Eov was there as well. Shosak, he didn't say a word. And Yisro Barach, and he consulted with Yisro, and Yisro took off, he ran away. And Chazal tell us, Bilam, who gave the advice to Paro, Neherag Bechera. That's why he was killed with the sword. Eov Sheshosak, Eov didn't say anything. He did not give advice, but he did not go ahead and try and convince Paro out of it. Nidon bi Surin. So he lived a life of suffering, of trials and tribulations. That is the story of Eov. And Yisro Shebarach, Yisro who runs away, Zachal Ubanav Yeshu Belishkas Hagazis. So Yisro, his children are going to be part of the Sanhedrin. They're going to be part of Leviim, Moshe Rabbeinu, and so forth. He was zocher to a tremendous thing for running away. So Rav Chaim asks, which one is the worst punishment? Bilam, who gets killed, or Eov, who has years upon years upon years of suffering? Years upon years of suffering. Eov is the paradigmatic sufferer of Klal Yisrael. Which one is worse? Yisurin morim v'noraim she'en bekoach enosh l'sovlam. Years of trials and tribulations of suffering, or is death, a simple death, an immediate death? Which one is worse? So one would have argued that perhaps life imprisonment is a worse punishment than the death penalty. To have a life of suffering is even worse than Misa. And he says, clearly you see over here, the message that Chazal are telling us is, Bilam gave bad Eitzah. He gave this Eitzah, he gets the worst punishment, the most valuable and precious thing that we have. And even if it's a life of difficulty, of trial, of Yisurim, the most precious thing we have, we always have to keep in mind, is this sense of life, and to appreciate life. This is what David HaMelech tells us. We say this in Hallel, Yasor Yisrani Ka, that Hashem gave me suffering, gave me Yisurin, Vilamaves lo nesanani, but I have life, and a sense of appreciation even from the most basic things. Certainly we daven that it shouldn't be al yidei Yisurim v'chaloim ran. We don't want Yisurim, but even the most basics we have to go and appreciate. And of course, there's a very well-known vort that comes from this week's parsha, which expresses this in a very, very beautiful way. We're told in Perek Mem Zayin, Pasuk Tes, that Yaakov and Paro are united. Is that Yaakov comes and makes the trek all the way down to Mitzrayim, and he's brought, Yosef brings him to Paro. Yaakov gives Paro a bracha, and then the first thing that Paro sees Yaakov and says to him is, Vayomer Paro el Yaakov. Paro says to Yaakov, Kama yemei shmei chayecha. How old are you? A very strange question. Yaakov has trekked far from Eretz Yisrael down to Mitzrayim, and the first thing he says to him, not Shalom Aleichem, not here, let me get you a drink, a cup of tea, a suda. The first thing he says to him is, how old are you? Kama yemei shnei chayecha. Yaakov responds, Vayomer Yaakov al Paro, yemei shnei megurai shloshim u'me'at shana. I have lived 130 years, ma'at, a few years, not years of plenty, v'ra'im, difficult years. Ho yemei shnei chayai, v'lo hisigu es yemei shnei chayai v'osai, and have not achieved the years of my father and grandfather, Yitzchak and Avram, bimei megureim. Yaakov says, 130 years, and it's been tough. It's been a tough life. I've had a tough time of it. So the Das Zaken and Bali Atosis over here on the Pasuk, you can find this in the older Mikros Gedolos, cites a Medrash. And the Medrash says that Hashem was very, very angry with Yaakov for this answer. He says, yeah, you had a tough life. You did have a tough life. And you had difficulties in your early years with Esav. And you had difficulties later on with Lavan, and you had struggles with Rachel and with Leah, and you had the Parsha of Dinah. Yes, indeed. And then you lost Yosef for many years. You had a very tough life. But says Hashem, I was with you the whole way through. I saved you from Esav, and I saved you from Lavan, and you were reunited with Yosef, and in the end things did work out okay with Dinah. One thing after another. There was tough times, there was trials and tribulations. But I was with you the whole step of the way. Every step of the way I was there, saving you from these difficulties. And here you are telling Paro, complaining about Ma'at Vira'im. And the Medrash says that Yaakov was taken to task. And because of this answer that he gave to Paro, Hashem takes 1 year away from his life for every word of his answer. And if you count up the words, 33 words in his answer, and he was destined to live 180 years just like his father Yitzchak, but because of this 33-word answer, so for every word in the answer, a year is taken away, and Yaakov Avinu will die at the age of 147. The problem is obvious. Count up the words of the answer. If you count up the words of Yaakov's answer, it doesn't come out to 33. It's only 25. So why is he punished, losing 33 years of his life, when indeed his answer is only 25 words long? So you take a look, it's clear, the Pashup Pshat is, you have to look at the prior pasuk. You have to look at the question. Vayomer Paro el Yaakov kama yemei shnei chayecha. Paro asks Yaakov, how old are you? That's the first question he asks. Why is that his first question? So the answer is obvious. Is Yaakov, he had a tough life. And certainly you and I, if we gave this answer, perhaps we wouldn't be punished like Yaakov. Yaakov on his level, so Hashem is bochein tzadikim kechut ha'sa'ara. But apparently Yaakov is not just taken to task for the words of his answer, but apparently he bore it on his face. His fatigue, his tough life that he had, he wore the challenges with Esau, with Lavan, with Dinah, with the loss of Yosef. He wore that on his countenance, on his visage. And therefore, because he looked old, he looked fashlept, so therefore Paro asked, the first thing, he's struck by the aged Yaakov. How old are you? That's the first thing Yaakov transmits. That's the image, that's the message that he's projecting, that agedness. And therefore that's exactly what Paro asks him about. That's the first thing Paro is struck by. And therefore Chazal tell us an unbelievable idea. Yaakov is not just punished again on his level for the words that he says, but also for how he carries himself. And therefore those eight words, Vayomer Paro el Yaakov, Kama Yemei Shnei Chayecha, are part of the cheshbon, are part of the words that get you to 33. Unbelievable idea is that Yaakov, again at his level, didn't appreciate every moment of his existence. He was fatigued, he was tired. And Hashem says, no, you're alive. And just being alive itself is a cause for celebration. And not only in how we speak, but how we live life, with energy, with passion. We go ahead and have enthusiasm, and that should be what is transmitted on our visage. That is what we're transmitting to the world. I'm alive. What is schus? What an opportunity. And we all suffer tremendous difficulties. Maybe if we're older, chinuch, habanim, maybe ailments, physical ailments, parnasa challenges. We all have our own yisurim. But the message that Rav Chaim Shmulevitz tells us is, at the end of the day, even a life of yisurim with difficulty, you're still alive, and it's something to have a tremendous amount of hakaras hatov for. He cites a very, very stunning medrash. The medrash tells us, Bereishis Rabbah, Parsha Mem Dalid, Os Dalid, that Avram Avinu was very fearful. Was very, very fearful. He was mefached. After all, he looked back at his life and he says, I went down to the Kivshon HaEsh, Vinitzalti. I had a war, got involved in wars, 4 kings against 5, Vinitzalti. And I'm worried. I've had all of these challenges, and every time I was saved, Avram was fearful. Maybe, Tomar, you might argue, Shnit kabalti schari b'olam hazeh ve'ein li klum la'olam haba. Maybe I already got my schar in olam hazeh, and I'm not going to get anything for olam haba. And Hashem says to Avram, Al tira anochi magen lecha kol ma she'asiti imcha b'olam hazeh chinam asiti imcha. Don't worry. All these zechuyos, all these salvations I gave you, it's on me. And don't worry, it doesn't impact your olam haba at all. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz makes the following point. Why was Avram so worried? He was moser nefesh to be taken into the Kivshon HaEsh. That was a tremendous mesiras nefesh. Why is he worried that he's going to lose schar because of being moser nefesh for the Kivshon HaEsh? Same thing. When it comes to the milchama, he was trying to save lives. He enters into a war that's not his war to save people's lives. Mesiras nefesh. What's he worried about? And Rav Chaim says this is exactly the yesod, because the best thing in the world, the biggest schar that a person can have is being alive. And Avram recognizes that. He understands, yeah, he might have been mosir nefesh, but the very fact that he was given another day, and another day, and another hour, and another week, and so forth, is the best reward possible. And he was fearful maybe that's going to impact and impinge upon his olam haba. And therefore, he's worried, he's nervous. Appreciate every moment that you have. There are difficult times, for sure. Every single person has them. It wouldn't be olam hazeh without them. But understand, even if there are yisurim, there are bumps in the road, to appreciate the most basic aspect of life itself. Water, oxygen, health, everything. But certainly life itself, that's the message of this beautiful medrash by Yaakov. Yaakov is indeed, Hashem looks Yaakov again, kechut hasa'ara, on his level. But the way we live, optimistic, positive, energetic, enthusiastic. That's how we're supposed to approach life, because life itself is the most unbelievable gift of all. And anyone, I'll just close, anyone who pays attention to the news and sees the tragedies of the school, the elementary school in Connecticut, and things that go on, never take your life for granted. Never take your children's life for granted. Take every moment. They're so meaningful, they're so special, and there's such a zechus that we should always, always appreciate. Have a wonderful